Before we go into this video, you need to pay attention to something very careful. There are 14 videos linked to this title here. 14 videos, and there is the link to my book, The Testimony of a Drug Lord Reborn. I created bread manna like Christ and Moses did, right? An authentic drug that comes from a plant called mayim that brings you back in a primal state. Use 100% of your brain. You can see in the movie Limitless. A drug proves that you can't think straight. You can't use your natural process and your natural organic motor skills with natural selection. You don't even have faith in your own biological genes to use your natural selection in life, your natural order. You can't use your natural organic motor skills, mental telepathy, ESP, remote viewing, telekinesis, levitation, spoon bending, clock winding, folding space and time with deja vu to predict the future and prevent what's going to happen. You know, Christ knew how to do these things. Think outside the mind, not with the mind. He knew how to, harness the power, divine power to command nature. He said, go back to your childhood, follow my footsteps, and you can do what I can and more. In the biggest DNA study ever done by Jeremy Griffiths and the top scholars in the world, they found the last human beings born on earth that can do every single thing that Christ can and more in DNA. The book of life, declared the book of life. They're the most avoided people in the world that can do that. Because everybody has this jealous, spiteful cow trapped in their mind, in mentality. And that's their personality. They now have amnesia in their genetic process with genetic memory, with their ancestry and genetic tools. And I know that for a fact, as I'm number one in the biggest study done, in the Gatekeeper report, in the most powerful DNA study, with the most powerful miracles with divine intervention they can't explain. I've been clinically dead 3 times and brought someone back to life 3 times with peer reports and CCTV, and you don't believe in me. Bad luck. I don't care what you think. I'll put up with your shit my whole life and all your mentality and your judgmental competitive behavior because you're a jealous, spiteful, egotistical, weak little coward that can't harness the power. Your biology, your DNA, and your aura, and your body cells in 98.7% anti-clockwise. So they're going corruption, collusion during the daytime, and you all die prematurely from stress-related diseases, and you're infested with stress, fear, and anxiety, confusion, frustration, delusion, and paranoia, with artificial intelligence and leverage mutation. You don't even believe in it. You lost your genetic memory in 1960. You've been in post-human states ever since, declared and right, not only warned Revelation, but declared in 1999 that your parents are crazy. And then in 2003, they declared a species in denial. And everybody lives in denial. Warned in Revelation, with DNA studies done, right, told worldwide in 1999. What truth do you think you're living in? Your own. And your own opinion as well. You're all actors now. Acting for someone else. You can only use 7 to 15% of your brain in the highest IQ in the world. We can master our mind and use 100%. We're not trapped in our mind with amnesia. You are. And lie to yourself. Christ at 24 crossed over. And what did he say? He said, I'm son of David, son of Abraham. He went up to some Samaritan woman and told her about the 5 husbands 20 years before he was born. She freaked out. So did everybody would have done that. So it goes in a time where time stands still, right? And goes in the past and the future. And every prophet did. Predicted the future. 85% of the Bible is written on prophecy and unfolds 300 years later, all the way through the Bible. So Plato wrote 15 books about that family tree DNA. The Bible's about DNA and a family tree, not religious political behavior or New Age cults and grammar, not artificial intelligence and leverage mutation and people mutate into all the time and normalise what was moral yesterday non-stop and live in their own truth with light power, frequencies and vibrations and fifth galaxy federations in a 5-sense world and a 5D world, light power, deceiving, demonic, and its only personality, and they only live in mentality, in the consciousness of mental bent and mental process and illusion imagination set up by the Rockefellers in the conscious singularity by WF. So they live in mentality in their mind, in a personality. Now they can't use their spirituality. Mental telepathy, ESP, remote viewing, telekinesis, levitation, spoon-bending, clock winding, folding space and time with deja vu. To predict the future and prevent what's going to happen. Well, this is the confidence here. This is the confirmation. I predict the future perfect. My book is rock solid evidence. I predict the future. And I'm never wrong. On the biggest study done by the biggest think tank, 7 most powerful peer reports, I can do 7 things no one else can with supernatural power they call godlike power or superhuman abilities on their documents. When I was 5 years old, I said to my mother, Mum, where were we? What happened? She said, what are you talking about, son? I said, Mum, we're sitting in a cell and there's bombs outside and we both shit scared. Mum, I'm terrified. What happened? Mum, where were we? What happened? I was having nightmares. She said I was dreaming. She said I was being stupid and dreaming and didn't tell me the truth, but I could feel the truth. I could feel the truth. She lied to me for years because it was her and her mother in World War II in 1945, 15 years before I was born. And I'm telling my mum, Mum, what happened? She lies to me because she couldn't deal with the reality that I had dimensional thinking and went into a past with my own genetic memory, with my ancestor tools, my own DNA. Recorded worldwide. We have that ability. Some of us, but very few. So at 5 years old, I rejected my parents as a freak of nature. Then I go to school and get rejected by everyone in school as a freak of nature. Then I get picked on all the time by everybody else. That's wrong about everything in life, trapped in their mind with mentality and don't have any spirituality. In post-human states, none of them do. They only have mentality in their consciousness, their mentality and their personality. They can't think forward clockwise in their DNA, and I can. My aura is perfect 24 hours a day. I don't have mental disorders and defects, and you're riddled with them. In 98.7% of the population have 600 to 6,000 defective genes because they live in their mind with unnatural selection, with artificial intelligence, and lineage mutation with atheism. Designed by atheists, anti-clockwise. And they don't believe in it. That's why they're a species in denial, in a massive global delusional state. What did Christ say? He was a street warrior. He was a street warrior who taught in the streets, in the paddocks, where he said the kingdom is your church, not the fucking church. Low life. You have a low life boldness reliability because you're trapped in the 23rd seed you warned about. The reptilian mentality in the reptilian seed. You didn't follow the 24th chromosome, right? The blood of the lamb, the woman's seed. Now it's in dormancy since 1920. You can see in cellular study research, but your 24th chromosome is what gives you godlike power, supernatural power, superhuman abilities. You can Google this. They say you can't live on it because they lie to you and you fall for every deception. That's why you're in mentality, right? And that's your reality. But spirituality is our reality. We control our business from the outside in. Like Keanu Reeves in the Matrix, those are thinking Steve with you in our program, we control our business from the outside in. We suffer no mental disorders and no defects, and we can respond 7 times faster than you can think. Directional microphones. The biggest think tank, National Crime Authority, Federal Police, had me on surveillance 24 hours a day because I was 7 times faster than I could think. And then they discovered when they put pen to paper in a courtroom, I had to rate deja vu to predict the future and prevent what's going to happen. So they got me in the mastermind report as the most powerful mastermind in the gatekeeper report with that kind of godlike power. You don't believe in it. I'm the last human being born on earth with the most powerful documents to back it up. I can do every single thing that Christ can and more. So I know what you don't know. You stand by the Babylonian beast. Greed, power, temptation, money and material things controls every single aspect of your life. And that's what you give consent to, the Babylonian beast. You are controlled by radio waves with an outside influence, with addictions. So many addictions with unnatural selection, you don't even know what you're doing. You can only use 7 to 15% of your brain. You can see in the movie Limitless with a drug, Brad Manor, from a plane called Mount. Boomfa, you come out of your shell and use 100% of your brain and cross over. And you wouldn't have a clue how to. Because of all the propaganda and all the lies that you live on with the placebo effect anti-clockwise in your DNA. And you know, the Rockefellers trapped you in your consciousness, right, with evolution mutation. And then they put out a fake document in 1920 with a placebo effect anti-clockwise to be executed by 220. And by 220, 98.7% of the population is anti-clockwise in their DNA with a placebo effect anti-clockwise in their body. Their instinctive behaviour only works 1 to 5%. Their aura only works 1 to 5%. Their body cells corrupts during the daytime, and every single one of their species dies prematurely from stress-related diseases and keep coming back and reincarnate trap, and they don't believe it. They have amnesia. How the fuck would they know? How the fuck would they know? Christ woke up from amnesia at 24 and discovered who he was, and he said, I'm son of David, son of Abraham with genetic memory. And he always told people about their past because he has a universal codependent power. The gnostic web, right? He has the godlike power, divine power to command nature. He takes people in the paddock and he gives them bread manna in bread, just like Moses did. He gives people bread manna, and then they come back in the primal state, like the movie Limits, that comes from a plant called Mayan. The tree of life. That's right, the tree of life that brings you back to life. Brings you back in your primal state, where you feel the truth, with a meth effect and MDMA, high as a kite with ecstasy, and you're free from mental disorders and defects, and you don't suffer. But you can only do it with a drug. You can't do it organically, because you can't create the second secretion with the molecules, with genetic memory, because your genetic memory doesn't work. It's in dormancy with amnesia. You only think with an IQ behavior, like a robot, to fact check, Google yourself, with every single thing you're programmed engineered into, with voices in your mind that are ultimately designed from extinction, declared by Jeremy Goose and the top scholars in the world. The world is delusional and live in denial worldwide. Declared 2003. They're more artificial than ever and more confused than ever before. Because they keep following the Babylonian beast with unnatural selection, with all the things they consume and all the things they go into in their mind. Think they're someone special in the world and have no idea what they're doing. They can't do what Christ can anymore because they didn't cross over through the rebirth, in the great resurrection, in the great transformation in DNA. DNA studies done with Jeremy Givers, the book Freedom, right, hailed by 16,000 top scholars in the world, the Holy Grail of life, with natural selection in DNA. Only 1.3% of the population has crossed over into the primal state and control their vision from the outside in with a perfect aura. With We're Not Breathing program, right, is won and over prize without a credential. To recreate the sacred secretion, you cannot create. To restore your biological clock in the central nervous system. To cross back over in your primal state. To come out of your shell. To come out of your shell. A 40-day fast like Christ did was stop unnatural selection, get off screens, radio waves, isolate, take zinc, iron, magnesium, bring plenty of water, stop eating, and get off screens and radio waves. Don't argue with people or be competitive. 40 days, you go to an inflection point of no return, and you'll cross over and never go back. And then you start to find freedom and go through a 3.5-year transformation with We're Not Breathing program to reoxidize your blood with the sacred secretion with the Holy Breath of Life. That's why it's declared the Holy Breath of Life. That's why the book Freedom's declared the Holy Grail of Life, because it'll take you forever, Babylon. So stick your head for the light in the tunnel. Jacob's ladder. Go up the ladder on every step, like Plato describes in 15 books. The greatest philosopher of all time. And they studied Plato and the human condition for 45 years and found the largest human beings on earth that can do every single thing that Christ can with DNA and genetic memory. So I have these tools and I was born with them since I was 5 years old. And everyone called me crazy and mental. And you have to be very confrontational like Christ was. You have to be a street warrior. I came from the cave of prison with the tooth of massive before I came out in raggedy clothes like shining armor. Like a thief in the night with raggedy clothes with shining armor. Just like Christ warned you about. He told you I'll come from the cave of prison and I'll leave my mark on earth. And I'll leave the biggest mark on earth you've ever seen. With the most powerful confirmation to bring people back in the primal state with the drug. The most powerful enlightenment drug, love drug, and truth serum in the world. Okay? Methamphetamine from Belen called Mayer. On every testing centre across Australia, the course the Royal Commission, the Stolen Generation, the biggest mental health research, and DNA studies done from the Star Chamber Inquiry, and I was number 1 most wanted with godlike power in the Gatekeeper Report. So I know more what you do. I know the great resurrection crossover, so you can do what Christ can and more in the most positive appearance, with real love pouring all over you, with a divine intervention, a powerful confirmation, a clarification, that you haven't got. Because you haven't been reborn and crossed over back into primal state to do what Christ can do more, to go to a new dimension, a new, what? A new timeline of sevenfold wisdom knowledge you see in the movie limits, a vortex of information through the principality and the power in the air. When your principality is in the right place and you're not trapped inside your mind, you have this vortex of information with sevenfold wisdom knowledge, the principality and the power in the air. And that's a God-given gift with divine power to command nature. In your biofields and 27 senses, that stands for the Holy Spirit, divine light in your own DNA. And you're oblivious to this. You have 32 senses. You live in 5 sense mentality. And that's your limited, little tiny reality. Look at the movie Limits. He has brain fog, trapped in what? Psychedelic effects, psychology, that you die prematurely from in your mind and lie about. He comes out of his mind, looks back at his vessel, and then he gets a clarification and uses 100% of his brain. Then he gets a vortex of information with a universal language, like Christ did in a time where time stands still, and light preserves to see into the past, into the future like I can, to prevent what's going to happen. Deja vu, to see into the future like Christ can. And he could feel every human being around him, and he knew their past through codependent power. And that goes into your vibrations, into your DNA, through your body cells, and then he can feel the truth with remote viewing and deja vu in a time where time stands still, and go back in history and go forward at the same time. Christ was a perfectionist with these tools. Absolute alpha amigo, primordial being number one. Okay, and I was developed with the same tools, with genetic memory. And my parents said I was crazy and a freak of nature. So did everybody else. Every single human being on earth goes against me with the same genetic memory, with the most powerful confirmation on earth, and the most powerful biblical signs, where 5 biblical prophecies land on my date of birth, with 5 massive declarations made worldwide on my date of birth. I can't lie or make it up. But you live in your own mind, in your own truth. You know nothing about life. You follow the church. You follow Nimrod and the naked drunks, Noah's family. So they took away your universal language, didn't they? And made sure you couldn't live to be any more than 120. Put your nations with confusion and frustration into your psychedelic effects, with artificial intelligence and literature mutation, and they set you up. The Rockefellers designed your whole education. They designed the fate document, anti-clockwise of the placebo effect. They designed consciousness to trap you in your mind with conscious singularity. So you're in the biggest soul trap in human history, because you can't use your genetic process and your ancestor tools with spirituality and supernatural power. The God-given gift that God gave you with your own DNA in genetic memory, in every DNA in the world. But you didn't follow those footsteps. No, you followed Baal. That's why you are low life in voltage reliability, anti-clockwise, and your DNA can only repair 3.5 hours a night. We repair 24 hours a day because we don't live in our mind. We don't live in a personality, in mentality. In that mentality. Those are the things that's with you in our program. Those that don't won't in the story. Not negotiable, never was. Idiots. Godless and mind creatures of worth, living in their mind. Mentality. Fake belief system. Fake tools. Propaganda, lies, and do what they're told at the same time with the voice mind that controls them, that they gave consent to, their own truth. Those voices control them. Yin and yang. Do it, don't do it. Think critically. Give you 5 reasons why you shouldn't, why you shouldn't. While I think outside the mind and respond 7 times faster than you can think, because I don't think. I have faith in my biological genes to look at the picture that tells me 1,000 words with the universal language. I have faith in my biological genes with the outside influence to allow my celestial primordial being to control my vessel. So I'm not trapped in my mind and personality, in mentality. You are. I'm not. Never was. You're the liar. You're the one living in a narrative. You're the one trying to trap me and everybody else around you. Why do you think you suffer the human conditioning with stress, fear, and anxiety going through the roof? And you live in a delusional state on drugs, radio waves, and addictions, and knowing that's a selection of 5 cents world. You're inverted. In 98.7%, all your kids are born with parasites, and now every American, 77% of their children is born with chronic diseases because they're a species in denial. Brain lock denial. They have brainwashed, right? They can only use 7 to 15% of their brain, which means they're brainwashed and can't use 85 to 93% of their brain. Look at the movie Limits. It proves it with a drug. Red manna that Christ and Moses used from a plant called Maya. And they lie to you. And you believe the deceptions and the movies and the propaganda. You never believe us. Never did, never will. But Christ warned you who I'll be, and the mark on earth I'll leave here. And he said to you, I come from the cave of prison to the masses, with fire coming from my mouth and raggedy clothes, like a thief in the night, with shining armor. I have the divine power to command nature. You don't. I teach the resurrection, the crossover, and protect the elect with the most powerful confirmation on earth that you have no care about, because you think you know better with your tools and your artificial human beings and your gods. Atheists always thinks they're great gods to mankind, and they're special with self-envy, self-pride, and so far up their own arse with their greed, power, temptation, and capitalist pigs and capitalising their own personality with their own opinions. That's why all their books are inverted in themselves. Declared worldwide. Every mental disorder book is inverted with an opinion. And they believe, right, in all the books of mental disorders and not in demons in their mind. Every Westerner's that shit scared of death and have no faith in their own biological genes with natural selection and natural order, where they never had the death experience. They never suffer mental disorders and no death experience. They don't have such faith. They're afraid of death. They're afraid of everything. They sit there in a comfort zone in front of a screen because they're gutless wonders and got no relationships in real life, no codependent power, no soulmate relationships. They're not connected to life, nature, and all the things known earth because their fauna is collapsing by 38 to 98% value, traditional value. Animals going around in circles over the earth, birds falling out of the sky, vertigo in the fish going around in circles, Anabian syndromes worldwide in every peer report, where they all lose the magnetic pulse, going into sixth mass extinction, stripped from the sixth sense for the sixth time, because they've got demons in their mind. Hellfire's right there. And they lie about it to themselves. They're possessed beyond the point of return and gave consent because they didn't follow the right bloodline. They didn't follow the right family tree. They didn't stand against the Babylonian beast, and Christ stood against every religion. And they were the ones that had him put on the cross. They said he was an outlaw because they were jealous, spiteful, weak little cowards. They could not do what he could do and more. They always were, these Western civilizations. Jealous, spiteful, self-centered, egotistical cowards. And same with their pastor, priests in their church and their Christians and all their radio waves and all their new age. Not one of these numbnuts can do what Christ can or follow those footsteps and win across, crossing over in the rebirth, in the great resurrection. Not one. Not fucking one on a screen. They just talk shit with their opinions, right, and distract everybody else in the greatest delusion you've ever seen, where all they care about is themselves and their own opinions, and sidetrack you so bad you have no idea. The worst possessed by an outside influence that sounds heavenly, that would tell you whatever you want to believe in the Christ consciousness that doesn't exist. Being in the Christ is to be innocent like a child, like a father who would sacrifice every single thing to save his children. The Father's image, in a quantum mechanic of unconditional love, with their biofields, in their biological genes, with their natural organic motor skills, which is loyalty, honor, respect, morals, inspiration, and encouragement, the intuitive, codependent power with a divine intervention and the divine power, right, of a relationship. Codependent power, and it's a two-way street, and you do not have the relationship, and you've never been given divine intervention with divine power. You've never been naturally selected because you don't know the Father. And you never will till you cross over and start to get the outside influence, like the light bulb idea, the picture that tells you 1,000 words, dimensional thinking. The light bulb, the orbs of light, dimensional thinking in the portal, to go in another dimension where you see the future and can prevent what's going to happen. Christ knew perfectly, so do I. And every single person in the world says I'm crazy, mental, because they are, and accuse me what they're guilty of. Every single human being on earth does. Every scientist, every professor, every biologist, a creative thief and a liar. Every person on the screen steals contents from others, and the conscious singularity is about stealing contents from everyone else. They're trying to rob our consciousness, but they can't. Instinctive behavior to think instinctively outside the mind with your primordial state, spirituality, can never, ever go into conscious singularity because consciousness has no idea. That's why every person, every mind and consciousness cannot use these tools. So they lie that much to themselves. So their conscious singularity is going to put every person into the greatest delusional state in the biggest soul trap in human history. And that's the thing, instantly, no weapon formed against it can prosper. No radio wave, no World Wide Web, no mind control at all. And they have their primordial skills, right, with their genetic process and genetics ancestor tools. Like Winhoff, who's won 27 world records, 27-time more powerful immune system, like Mastermind Xing, the commanders of power, like the indigenous people 500 years old and 10 feet tall. Christ said, you live of the tree of knowledge, you'll surely die. And you will, because you live on it every day of your life and give consent to the tree of knowledge. And it's what you depend on 99% of the time. That's why you live in your mind 99%. You can only think instinctively 1% of the time to think outside the mind. And that's all you got. And that's your bullish reliability in your aura, anti-clockwise, in your DNA, where your body cells get corrupt, and you all die prematurely from stress. We got people here 257 years old with birth certificate with double Y double X chromosome. We got Aborigines here 500 years old, 10 feet tall with double Y double X chromosome, the 24th chromosome. We have people like Winhoff, Mastermind Xing, myself, and 113 people selected, naturally selected with UAPs, unexplained area phenomena, that has a double Y double X chromosome in the 21st chromosome and can do every single thing that Christ can, and went for a natural selection to do that through a transformation in DNA. DNA transformation by Jeremy Griffiths, the World Transformation Movement, DNA, the Book of Life, the book Freedom by Jeremy Griffiths, held by 16,000 top scholar world, the Holy Grail of Life, with DNA and biological evidence. The mind doesn't know what you're doing. You got to recreate the sacred secretion with window breathing program and the Holy Breath of Life to restructure your biological genes and oxidize your blood and create the euphoria of the Most High with the most powerful conduction. The most powerful conduction. Christ knew. The world doesn't know what they're doing in here. And when you cross over, you realize how stupid you were in here and how much you were trapped in your own personality. And, you were trapped by the boogeyman. That's why you tell all your kids, you go to school to be mentally institutionalized, then you can't do what Bruce Lee can by 24. He could master mind by 24 and by 12 be back karate blindfolded. I can respond 7 times faster than he can think. Blindfolded, he uses his sixth sense with a third eye, with days, shabu, and predicts the future, and prevent what's going to happen and block every punch. And they all have black belt karate. A child can mastermind a computer game between 3 and 7, and it's always clockwise from 0 to 7. Go to YouTube, you'll see kids 8 years old, third eye children, superhuman. At 8 years old, they can read, draw, and write blindfold and use their sixth sense. They go to school to be mentally institutionalized, it doesn't work. So they all go anti-clockwise. And their biological genes with their natural selection life and 2 models mentality and 130 nucleoside molecules, genetic repair kits, falls apart by 12. So they're brain dead. Fucking brain dead monsters coming out of school think their parents are dinosaurs and then lie to the kids about the boogeyman because they're mentally institutionalized and controlled by the boogeyman. The monster in the bed. That's why they lie to the kids who are innocent. But the kids can feel the truth. Especially by the time you're 24, right? And these people that rape your kids in the Royal Commission, they come to your door, manipulate you in 10 seconds flat, your child runs a corner because they can feel the truth and cannot be manipulated. And then you force them to meet these people. You fucking robot. When I come walking down the street in raggedy clothes, your child and your dog with their sixth sense run towards me and heart me with round before even my mouth. Because they can feel the truth. Like Bruce Lee blindfold, he could feel the truth like a child can. When he masterminded a computer game between 3 and 7, and 8 years old on YouTube, you can see they can read, draw, and blindfolded so they can feel the truth with their sixth sense. And you can see by the time they're 12, they're not fucking robots like you all are, with artificial intelligence, and think your parents are dinosaurs as you become transhumans and zombie apocalypse and no spirituality. Gone. You sold out for mentality when you go to school to be mentally institutionalized. And then you can't do what Bruce Lee can, because you can be deceived in 10 seconds flat. And a kid knows that. He's innocent. He knows you're a moron and you're possessed by the demonic spirit, right? The boogeyman. and you lie to your kids. He can feel that. He can feel you're a liar, and so is all your friends. And the people you love the most, who are actors, right, controlled by the same outside influence on their reality. And you can see these kids on YouTube, by the time they're 12, they can predict the next car coming out and they call them what colour it is. So they can prevent what's going to happen with deja vu. They can also guess who's ringing on your phone and what they're wearing in the other end with a universal codependent power, with an outside influence from the atmosphere, where they can see you with remote viewing to the other side of the world, like George Clooney when they're stinging with goats. So you think you're in the Christ image when we can teach kids to follow those footsteps, and you can see it on YouTube, but you're all liars. That was over 8 years ago, and you still live in denial, and you still program your kids to go into school so their body cells get corruption during the daytime, and as a result from that, 77% of your children today are born with chronic diseases because you're in denial. That's what you do to your kids, and you will all be punished for this because you put your kids' body cells into treasoning with corruption, coercion, collusion into their mind. So you push your kids into being deceived. That's why everyone feels abandoned. That's why every child's got no love. No parents that do this to their kids. And every parent, right, is possessed beyond the point of zone and do this to their children so they can't use their natural selection and their natural abilities. When they can master their own mind with 100% aura, clockwise, with deja vu remote viewing. And you can see that on YouTube with these kids. How mental Westerners are. How many insane every Westerner is and lie across the whole world. They're actors and they act for someone else to deceive you. We prove it with the most powerful confirmation on earth in 2008. And look at these kids now. They can do what Christ can and more as well. They wake up from amnesia as well by 24 and use their genetic memory with their genetic process clockwise. And as the lady says in that video, their kids by 12 years old are beginning to ask deep and meaningful questions about the meaning of life. And when you don't know the meaning of life, you don't know shit. The natural laws of life, the natural selection of your DNA, the natural order, righteousness, the relationship. Christ, they hated his guts, right? You ever know the truth about Christ? He helped sinners and people suffering. And you know the Jesuit and all pastors, why? They hated the fact that he was talking to criminals in the underground world. Well, everybody's in the underground world. He helped people in the fucking streets. He didn't help the others. He said, oh, you're right, aren't you? You're the righteous ones. I didn't come here to help you. I didn't come here to save the fucking world. I came here with a two-edged sword, right? A two-edged sword that you have to put between your own families and friends, and because they're your enemies. Most of your family, loves and friends are your enemies. And he came to put a sword in your hand and very confrontational love and told you the reason you suffer the human conditioning, right, is because of the system that controls you. And those that suffer mental disorders in and out of prison are the ones that stands against the voices in their mind, right, and do their heads in. While the rest you're controlled by it. By every other religion and every pastor, every priest and every church, every New Age and every other human being on earth is controlled by radio waves and the system with artificial intelligence and artificial mutation, no matter what comes out of the mouth. They didn't live by the one year equally and two similar commandments to love one another and bear those burdens in flesh. They didn't. They didn't know how to love their enemy. They can't even love their neighbour today. They can't even love people in the streets. They got no aura. They got no atmosphere. They got nothing but judgmental and competitive behaviour. That's all they're good for. Self-image, self-pride into themselves, and every American's an actor. Self-centered, egotistical, spineless, weak coward that knows nothing about the truth, and there's nothing humble about these species, and there's no compassionate feelings with real love, no care factor, no codependent relationships in real life, just actors on screens with radio waves, fake love, fake friends, fake tools, fake everything. Okay, they're just actors. They're not in the Christ image. They're full of BS. The whole world's full of BS. Every single human being on earth lives in their own truth and BS. Every single one. We come with the most powerful confirmation ever developed in modern history, in DNA, the book of life. And I'll show you real love. Tough love you don't like. I sacrificed myself for every fucking system in your world. and I put my mark on earth like no other human being on earth ever has. I sacrificed everything in my life. And I was unlawfully deported and get suppressed the most by every fucking human being on earth. Because they're the most biggest, powerful credit thieves and liars everywhere. Stolen contents. And that's what they are, stealing contents. Every Westerner's a content thief. Conscious singularity. Every Westerner is a content thief. All want to be like their great God, Nimrod, the milestone of Noah and the naked drunks, because they're drunk when they can't create the sacred secretion and see with the third eye with their sixth sense, going to six mass extinction, slipping the sixth sense for the sixth time. Living in mentality and a personality with amnesia and do not know what they do, limited to the maximum. Everybody's suffering stress, fear, anxiety, confusion, frustration, and paranoia, with mental disorders and DNA defects going in turbocharged rates in the biggest global pandemic of hypersensitivity, with paranoia, stress and anxiety and over-exaggeration and the placebo effect spreading like a virus, affecting everything in fauna and nature and their own biological system, with their own forbidden participants collapsing between 50 and 100% in every human being on earth. Their immunity is collapsing. So is everything in their fauna and everything they consume, because they're artificial human beings worldwide in post-human, transhuman states, in the zombie apocalypse, in the body-snatching rise declared worldwide, and violent syndromes from every peer hospital in the world. Everybody's losing their magnetic pulse. Magnetic fields are changing worldwide, and everyone's losing all their biofields in the most positive divine power to command nature, while some of us are getting all the power, 100% power. Those that are naturally selected, that goes back in the primal state, the innocent, is given the God-given gift with divine power through natural selection and natural order in life. So if you don't go back in the primal state for a 40-day fast and start natural selection with these tools, you haven't got a hope in hell. Believe me, I am trying to save every soul in the world from the ridiculous, inverted mentality and personality that's trapped you with the matrix in your front cortex. Do it, don't do it. That's the biggest deception of creating human history, in your consciousness and mental event and mental process and illusion of imagination. And that's why you suffer going through the roof. Because the consciousness was the greatest deception ever created by the Rockefellers, the fallen angels, with the secret covenant, with every unnatural selection you've gone into, with artificial intelligence, with atheism. And you don't even know. Mate, look what you normalised in 100 years. You have no idea what you're doing. We are the only ones that teach the resurrection with the right tools, with DNA studies done, to isolate yourself and get away from religious, political behaviour, New Age cults, and all their grammar. Do this because it's biological and DNA. The mind doesn't know. The mind's a problem, right? It plays tricks and games and you become your own worst enemy. And you are your own prison more than here with every single thing you've been engineered into, with the placebo effect and clockwise. Get away from this. 40-day fast, isolate, get off screens. Create the relationship with We're Not Breathing program to recreate the second degree with the Holy Breath of Life. And listen to the book Freedom Audio. They'll take you through every rabbit hole, right, through the light of the inner tunnel, as Plato describes in 15 books. Trust me, you'll get the most powerful confirmation and divine intervention and clarification you've ever had in your life. And you can't get it wrong. Once you go through this for 40 days and cross over, you'll never go back, because you'll be free for the first time and start to go through a massive transformation with the most powerful liberation you've ever felt in your life, with the most powerful love you've ever felt, in the most powerful high. When you keep breathing deep oxygen and you keep creating euphoria in the sixth sense, close your eyes and meditate with deep breathing, the Holy Breath of Life. Trust me, what it does for your Neuralink, the Tree of Life, Jacob's Ladder, is amazing. Do not rob yourself and get deceived by anybody else. When you start to go through this, you go back in your primal state in the highest high you've ever had, and you adapt into it with the most powerful love frequencies you've ever felt in your life. Give consent to the Father to control your vessel with the Holy Spirit, divine light, and believe me, what comes to you, it's amazing and a miracle. Don't get it wrong. It's the greatest time to be alive. Don't fuck up. Don't let anyone deceive you. I know the truth that will set you free. And we've got a confirmation from our followers with their testimonies worldwide. DNA is the book of life, man. I discovered this in 1994, when in the biggest study ever done in 99. My DNA and the biggest research, they found all of us in 2008, and that genetic process is recorded from 2008 to 2016 with the most powerful confirmation on earth that we can preserve DNA with longevity in a time where time stands still, like preserves in a new timeline with sevenfold wisdom knowledge, because we are solid evidence. And I lead this with the most powerful confirmation on earth. And trust me, God developed this. And I've got the genetic memory that you also have. And I've proven that. I can bring you through this process so you get the same genetic memory to do every single thing that Christ can, and the same family tree through all the apostles for the same bloodline. Follow the right family tree. Follow the right tools, the seed of the lamb, the seed of the woman. And trust me, you'd be fucking amazed what comes out of the blue with dimensional thinking, sevenfold wisdom and knowledge, right? In ways you do not understand, but you'll know. It'll give you a wow factor, and it'll leave you gobsmacked and speechless, because the mind has no idea how this works. Think outside the mind, and it'll come to you. Cross over, and you'll go into a natural selection, a natural order, and things starts to happen with genetic memory and a genetics answer to tools where things come to you out of the blue. And you'll know. And you'll never go back in your mind, and you'll never get deceived, and you'll never suffer again. You'll never have the death experience. 3.5 year transformation, and trust me, that's only the beginning of the greatest time to be alive. And what comes to you after that is nothing short of miracles, and you never stop receiving. Never think that you know everything, and never think you're perfect. You realize when you go through this and the crossover, you realize how dumb you were in your mind, and how dumb everybody is when they're trapped in their own mentality, because that's the only time when you go through the fixed point and go to the light and tell them, you realize how stupid you really were, and then it begins a whole new process. After 3.5 year transformation with DNA studies done, it only becomes the most powerful beginning with the most powerful divine intervention, where things come to you that's so far beyond the mind, it will leave you gobsmacked and speechless. And people have no comprehension what they're missing out on, because the mind doesn't understand the mind's a problem. The mind oppresses you in such a way you will never know. That's why you must cross over, right, until you can feel yourself removed from your vessel for the light in the tunnel, for every rabbit hole, to stick out at the cave. Take the red pill. You've got to do this and get right out of your vessel and go through the light in the tunnel, and you'll see nature and fauna and feel the most powerful confirmation with love pouring all over you, and you'll get a biggest clarification where everything is like X-ray vision, and wow, you'll see the future of deja vu that we're going into. With 10 times more fruit, with 10 times more nutrition value, 10 times more love, 10 times more everything. And you'll see it. And you'll get that clarification with deja vu, and then you know you're saved. From that moment, you'll never suffer again, because once you see this and feel this, that's when you've been saved and cross over, and you'll never suffer again. That's when you're saved. So I save you. I save your soul. So you go in a new timeline and never suffer the consequences again. Then you control your business from the outside in, and you take over yin and yang. And yin and yang, you eventually, in 3.5 years, they become your best friends. But be careful. They always try and trick you in little things. But you be onto this. You'll be more alert, alive, waking, and aware than you ever have been in human history. You'll have a full METH effect, right? Be fully activated 100%, and you'll see little things that build big mountains that you will never, ever notice in your life, that you're oblivious to. All the little tiny things you do on a daily basis that you're oblivious to are the ones that build big mountains that you're not aware of. You start to see things you were never aware of, and every decision that you make on a daily basis that's not real, it's artificial, and you'll discover that your delusional behavior is just a comfort zone. And many people live in a great comfort zone and are not aware of the influence in their reality that puts them in a delusional state like a Christ consciousness, and makes them sound heavily in some delusional state, that do not know the truth and don't have that relationship. Once you cross over, you never get it wrong ever again in your life. You also reject every single thing you believed in. No matter what it is, you reject everything, because it doesn't matter. Once you know the truth, nothing else matters. That's why I'm telling you, in the 40 days, put every single system down, every single thing you come to believe in, and get right out of your fucking mind. Get into your instinctive behavior. Get into your inner self, in your primordial being, in the sixth sense. You on the outside controlling your vessel like Keanu Reeves in the Matrix documentary, and like the movie Limits, he comes out of his shell. Are you outside controlling your shell from the outside in, where you can master your mind? Stop and think about it. Most of you are that fucking delusional that you lie to yourself. And you really do. That's how you trap yourself. Let go. Have a massive leap of faith you've never had, because it's 10 times more powerful than the reality you're trapped into. Once you release it, you have the God-given power to command nature, but you've got to learn to let go of your mind. Your mind's the oppressor. Your mind puts you in a delusional state, in a comfort zone. Let go. Because until then, you will never be free. You'll never understand the liberation until you let go and cross right back over in your innocent, in a primal state, like a father who would sacrifice every single thing to save his child. He would stand against religious, political, and New Age cults and every single system they're into, especially New Age, especially millennials born since 1960, that has no idea what they're doing with their natural process, right? Because they're the worst of the kind, living in the most delusional state, and you can argue with these species every day. They will not listen to you because they're soft, weak-spined cows and living in a comfort zone, an illusion, the most. But they suffer stress and they know they do and lie to themselves and don't even realise that. You look at New Age worldwide like Laurie Ladd, pins and needles, you're feeling that anxiety? Okay, every New Age has got this crap going on. Okay, and they're in the clouds, floating around in space. Not through the light and tunnel into nature and into point of everything is perfect with the most powerful clarification with real love. No, they're always living in space in their own delusion, traveling in space, lost in their delusion, lost. And most of them, right, live in that comfort zone because that's their forefathers, the fallen angels, that gives them that influence. That sounds heavily in that massive global delusion state in their own DNA, the book of life. And they're not aware. They are not aware. They do not know what they do until they cross over and go through the transmission DNA and the genetic memory where things comes to them out of the blue with their own ancestry genetic memory, their own ancestral tools coding their own DNA. And when things come to you, you know. You don't argue or debate with anybody because you know. And you know why Christ said, save a sinner, save those suffering, walk with enemy, work with enemy, love thy enemy as much as the neighbour, because they do not know what they do. That's what he said. They do not know what they do. Father, forgive them, they do not know what they do. And that goes for every single human being on earth trapped in here. They think they know what they're doing, but they can't do what Christ can, and they're not in that image. They're in a delusional state in Christ's consciousness, mentality, in Christ's consciousness in the mind, not in this image. And now every Western America has normalized this kind of behavior. Christ's consciousness doesn't exist. It's not being in the Christ image. It's a great global delusional state. And everybody's following that delusion with consciousness, a mental event, a mental process, an illusion imagination, set up by the Rockefellers into the conscious singularity by WF, because everyone's a content thief. That's why they're in the screen, because they're content thieves. And they mentally resonate because they're not fucking humans. They're actors for someone else and delusional with addictions and radio waves, principality in the power of the air warned about with their capitalist pigs and their self-centered egocentric behavior, like every American on a screen with the worst parasites and the worst defective genes and the worst mental disorders and the worst genetic process where 77% of their children are deformed. That's how fucked up Americans are as species in denial. As Jim McGill says, and the top scholars, Americans are the worst, right, reptilian mentality in the world that spreads the most propaganda and lies and live in their own delusional state. Worst DNA, worst mental disorders, take the most drugs and the most actors in the world and self-proclaimed nutcases that's never had a divine intervention and don't live by the laws of life and never naturally selected with the divine intervention at all. Delusional parasites that controls every human being on earth. Delusional parasitosis declared worldwide. The whole world is infested with delusional parasitosis, a hostile entity, a voice in the mind that tell them whatever they believe in their own truth. The greatest deception ever created in human history, and everyone's in that delusional state, and it's never crossed over in the Christ image, just a delusional state. Every pastor, priest, and Christian, every New Age, with their argumentative behaviour and their judgmental competitive behaviour. Self-centered creatures all over the world. Not in the Christ image, not in the Father's image, and don't even know, don't even care. All they care about is the material and their consumption, their crap on a screen all day. That's why the Father said, Modern technology, modern gadgets with images will get them the most. And Christ says that in the panic. He said, all you care about is greed, power, temptation, money, material things. And all you care about is your modern gadgets with modern gadgets and with modern images. You idolize everything with icons. And you all think you're idols and icons. Actors all over India South. Capitalism. You're all capitalist pigs, capitalizing your personality, like actors all over. Icons on a screen all day, with radio waves, prints a pound and pound here. Every single thing you're warned about is what you depend on the most. Then you live in a delusional state to believe that you don't. Oh no, I'm not following bail. No, I'm not following the system. Are you that dumb? You do what you're told. Just like everyone else, you are not in your primal state. You don't live by the wine you're legally. You don't love one another as in flesh. You don't have any real codependent relationship. You got no soulmate relationships because you don't have a fucking soul. You want it back? You talk to me. You practice what I preach and I'll get you out of here. Nobody else will.